Hey, what's on, guys? So welcome to my spoiler-free review of The Defenders. So The Defenders is the anticipated four-show team-up with Netflix's Marvel Cinematic Universe. So with Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist. So before I jump into this review, I want to point out that I really think you guys should not watch the show based on the reviews that are going around right now. Because all the reviews that you've seen up till today have been just reviews for the first 4 episodes, so they're really biased, and you can really tell that they're really just underappreciating the show for what it actually is. So I seriously recommend you guys stay away from all of these reviews that you've seen before you actually watch the series in general, just because they're really gonna underappreciate the show, and they might even pull some of the audience away if you read the reviews. Because I personally think they're over exaggerated, and the show is nowhere as bad as how they're talking about in the reviews. So after watching the 8-episode miniseries, I can easily say that these reviews are over exaggerated. You know, the series is by far the best team up that I've seen in a while since the Avengers, and I would say it definitely has potential to get better than the Avengers as as we see more of these characters and their stories, and maybe the potential season 2 for Defenders. So that mostly has to do with the mature storytelling and the tolerable humor. But this video isn't about roasting the Avengers. Let's just get started. So the series starts off by actually telling us the stories post events from the past seasons of the shows. So it actually does a pretty good job, and it actually does that in a pretty enjoyable way. You know, we see how all the past seasons have affected our characters, and some obviously have been hit harder by the events than other characters, but it's all like super enjoyable. And the reviews actually say that these are like the weakest episodes of the series. I wouldn't say these episodes are weak in general at all. In fact, I'd say, you know, they're more necessary for the build-up of the actual team up. So I think they've pulled it off in a pretty good way. You know, I wasn't all that bored throughout any of these first 4 episodes. You know, I was pretty engaged, and I was pretty suspenseful, and I kept just binging after each episode. So it wasn't anything boring. We don't actually get the whole actual team up of all the characters until the end of episode 3, which is understandable because they have to build up to that actual moment. But when the team up does happen, it's a lot of fun to watch. And the action, the humor, the character interactions, it's all there, and it's all a lot of fun to see on screen. I think they did a really good job connecting all the stories from the past seasons together by building up to that climactic cinematic final event. On an added bonus, I thought it was really cool how they switch from each story to story from each of the characters. Because what the show does is, you know, it'll focus on one character. So let's say it focuses on Iron Fist first, and then it transitions over with this cool transition of like subway trains and like city lights going by, and then it transitions over to like Jessica Jones, and the cinematography changes. So it had different styles for cinematography for each of these characters in the same series. I thought that was a really cool feature because you don't really see that unless you're watching each of these shows individually on their own. And seeing different cinematography styles come together for one like whole series, I thought that was just a really nice feature to have. But personally, what I think makes the show so strong is the chemistry between the characters and the balance between the personal and global conflicts. So the chemistry between the characters was really great. You know, all the earlier parts of the show really focuses on getting these characters together and having them interact and seeing, you know, like who is this person, having them meet the other people. So personally, in the earlier episodes, I think Luke Cage and Iron Fist definitely had the best interactions. You know, and then the other half was Jessica Jones and Daredevil. But Luke Cage and Iron Fist, they just clicked from the moment I saw them on screen. You know, they had humor, and they had just, you could just tell, you know, these guys are gonna get along pretty well later on. And then by the halfway point of the show, you know, all the characters' chemistry just blends together so well, and they all just interact in a really fluent way. The other pros are personal and global conflict balance. So what makes the show so much better than other shows that we've seen, specifically like live action Marvel shows and the movies and whatnot, is that these characters are just so much more relatable, unlike, you know, the Avengers and whatnot, because, you know, they actually live normal human lives for the most part, and then they have their superhero lives. And the global conflict is definitely present, but It never felt like the city was being attacked in a super unrealistic way. You know, it wasn't like aliens coming out of portals and attacking the city. It was all contained, and it didn't feel like something over the top. Because you really don't need, you know, a $300 million budget and top of the line explosions and visual effects to make a good show. You know, if you have, you know, a compelling story with rich and deep characters, then you're definitely gonna have something successful. And that's where I think the Defenders really stands. The other part of this whole personal global conflict is seeing how both halves of each character's worlds collide. So, you know, you have the human half of the character, and then you have the superhero half of the character, and how both of those worlds collide because of this occurring global conflict. And I think they pulled it off pretty well. You know, obviously, you know, that the collision was stronger for some characters compared to others, but it was all pulled off in a pretty decent way. The other pro would definitely be the action sequences. You know, seeing all the characters fight together on screen with different fighting styles was a lot of fun to watch. And one thing you're definitely going to notice is the fighting style improvements for Iron Fist. Because if I can remember back when Iron Fist first came out, you know, everybody was complaining how his fighting style wasn't all that like natural. It didn't have that like kung fu vibe to it. It's still kind of not there in Defenders, but you can definitely see a noticeable improvement in the fighting style for Iron Fist. And then as some added pros that I personally preferred were, you know, the style that they did for the intro and the overall soundtrack of the show. So, you know, the intro just looked absolutely beautiful. I'd say it's definitely like my second best intro out of all the shows we've seen. The other one would definitely be like Jessica Jones, just because, you know, I just love that, like all of the like visual effects that they had in that intro. But in this one, it's really, really nice too. How we have, you know, we have like a top view of the city, and then we have like the wireframe view of the characters over top of the city. I thought that was super cool. That's just my personal preference. And the other pro would be the soundtrack that they had for a show. The soundtrack seemed to fit pretty well for a show. It never felt like, you know, any of the songs were out of place or that it just didn't match the tone of the show. And another cool feature that they had was they do play soundtracks specific to each of these characters at some point in the show. And that was really nice to hear. So, you know, there's parts, if you listen closely during the action sequences, you'll hear all their intros, but you'll definitely hear songs from their shows. So I thought that was a really nice feature that they had. The only cons that I have with the show would be the pacing and the main villain. The pacing at times, you know, it slowed down a little bit more than I would have liked it to, but it did a good job picking itself back up after it slowed down, so I can't really complain there all too much, but I think they could have slowed it down a little bit less after all the major events happened. And then the other con is the main villain, Sojourner Weaver. I thought she did a pretty decent job, but compared to somebody like Wilson Fisk, I really didn't feel, you know, that level of tension that I got with Wilson Fisk compared to Sojourner Weaver's character. But, you know, she still did a pretty good job, and they do their best trying to explain, you know, she's been around for a long time, and there's a lot, how much she's actually heavily involved with everything that's going on. So I still say Wilson Fisk is definitely the best character for the Netflix MCU, but Sojourner Weaver's definitely up there. Overall, I'd say the Defenders definitely lived up to the hype that it was getting for all this time, for all these characters to be created and building up to this epic event, but it had some minor flaws. Overall, I give Marvel's Defenders an 8.9 out of 10. So let me know what you guys think. You know, have you been binging this like I have the whole day, or were you one of those people who actually stayed up the moment that it came out and just saw it, or are you just pacing yourself, you know, a couple episodes a day? How are you watching this? And from what you have seen, have you enjoyed the series, or did you not enjoy the series? So let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this video, remember to hit that like button. And if you're new and you want to see more content like this, then hit that subscribe button to see more content like this. I'll see you guys next time.